Sorry about the lo-fi situation going on with the camera here, but I don't know, I just fancy doing it this way because it's a bit gross and I can't bother to put more makeup on. So we're going to talk about Chillingham Castle, obviously. So I quite like this close-up intimate feel. So we talked about John Sage previously because I realised getting into the research of Chillingham Castle that he was a major player. So Chillingham Castle was originally used as a monastery and as a home to the Grey family from 1246. The manor house was destroyed by a raid by the Scots in 1296. So the castle was built in the 13th century. So I guess the Greys were the first residents. After it was destroyed, they built a more fortified manor house, which was completed by 1298. So that improved things a little bit. So King Edward I, I presume it was King Edward I, visited the castle at this time on his way up north to fight William Wallace at the Battle of Falkirk. Wallace managed to escape. But just because he got away doesn't mean that the Scottish people were free from terror and destruction, unfortunately. So the castle is described as almost beautiful on a pleasant sunny day, and I bet it is. It does look pretty impressive, but when you know its secrets, it's rather chilling. But it is the most haunted historic castle in Britain. So looks may be deceiving, you see. It has the highest levels, some of the highest levels of paranormal activity in the country. Even American poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said this about the castle. All houses in which men have lived and died are haunted houses. Through the open doors the harmless phantoms on their errands glide, with feet that make no sound upon the floors. The castle was built near the border of England to Scotland. 1400s or thereabouts, England wanted ownership of Scotland, but the Scottish were like, I don't think so somehow. So the castle was attacked many, many times by the Scottish folk. Not like they actually managed to do much damage though, because the walls were 10 foot thick. Imagine your wall being 10 foot thick. Crazy. And they were always working on ways to strengthen the castle against the attacks, so they didn't really stand much of a chance, to be fair. So the castle was also owned at some point by the Bennet family. They were noble, but also described as rebellious. Apparently there were 18 family members that lived there, and out of those 8 were hung, drawn and quartered. Their heads were impaled on the city gates as a warning to others. Some members only lost their heads rather than being quartered. Lucky them. After the war ended in 1346, it started in 1296 by the way, the castle didn't have much of a purpose, to be honest. It just kind of stood there looking impressive and also creepy. So a forest was grown around it, because I guess they just didn't know what else to do with it, and they ended up having what they call Chillingham cattle there, which are still there today, although I presume they are different cows to what they had back then. Yes, as talked about in the previous video, it was home to John Sage and all his evil doings, all his tortures, all his killings. He murdered like 7,000 people basically in that castle, so it's no surprise that it's haunted. In fact, you'd think it would be a bit more haunted than it is, to be fair. So yeah, like I said before, if you watched it, his ghost haunts the castle looking for his bits and bobs, you know, his hands and his nuts and stuff. And apparently, and the torture chamber, the rack, people can hear popping sounds. Like today, if you went there today, if you stood beside it, you could hear some popping sounds. Those are just the sounds of people's joints popping. Nothing to be alarmed about. Reportedly, obviously. Let's go through the different rooms and the different ghosts. So, the pink bedroom. Apparently this room, well, it says somewhere that this room is now private, so I'm guessing that means if you visited there, you wouldn't be able to go into this room because it's private. So I'm just, whatever. But apparently the ghost known as, actually that's not true, because I remember now reading on and people stay in this room, so apparently there's a ghost known as the Blue Boy. He appears from the wall. He just from the wall. It was, yeah, so his remains were found during renovations. His fingers and nails were broken, which led people to assume that he was bricked in the wall alive, which is like fucking horrific, you know. One place I read, apparently you see a blue halo before you then see him. And also somewhere else, he was known as a blue boy because he was wearing blue clothing, surrounded by a blue halo all the time. So who knows who's to be believed? We'll just have to visit there and find out ourselves, won't we? No, thank you. Yeah, people could hear him screaming in fear as it turned midnight, and then that screaming would stop as he then appeared. So obviously they're the sounds of him being bricked in alive. Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, people who stay in that room report seeing flashes of blue light on one wall as well. I don't know if that means like all the time throughout the night, because that would actually be really annoying. It's like, I'm trying to sleep, can you turn the light off? So then you have the room of King Edward. So in this room, lots of children were killed, which is great, after the war. They were afraid that the children would grow up and retaliate against them, so they killed them all. Standard. So apparently this is a room where many guests have been attacked because there is a very violent ghost there. It said ghost, one ghost, but I feel like if there are many children killed there, there will be many ghosts that were quite violent. So yeah, and then they say John Sage is the most evil ghost. Like, yes, he did try and strangle people, but this ghost attacks people too. So, but then they weren't evil in life. I suppose they just got dealt a really rough hand and kind of got their revenge, which I don't blame them, actually, to be quite honest. So yeah. Anyway, then you have the chapel. Loads of ghostly action here, apparently. They found 3 skeletons. 1 was under the floorboards and 2 under the window. I don't know what they mean by under the window. Is it like in the wall under the window, or is it just laying under the window? I don't know, but... So the one on the floor was actually the ghost of a little girl, or the body of a little girl, sorry. Apparently people don't know how she died. She just haunts people. She's not a nasty person, or a nasty ghost. She likes to say hello to female guests. She likes to play with their hair and just kind of get their attention in general, I suppose, which is nothing to be scared of, although if something I couldn't see was touching my hair, I'd be a little freaked out. But as long as they weren't trying to kill me, that's sort of the main thing. The still room. Apparently a Spanish witch was killed in here. I don't know why it's funny. Something about witches, isn't it? But a Spanish witch was apparently killed here. But just before dying, she thought she'd put a curse on the castle, so that if anyone who takes anything from the castle, they would then have bad luck. So reportedly, there is basically a place where loads of returned objects have been returned. Loads of objects have been returned by guests, posted back to the castle, basically, because they've taken the object, got bad luck, and thought, I don't like this bad juju, send it back. Which, I don't really know why. If I was a witch who was about to be killed, my dying curse wouldn't be anyone who steals from this castle is going to have bad luck. It would sort of be like, you and you are dead. So the still room was used to store the treasures of the castle. So an unlucky guard, would be locked into the still room to guard such treasures. But once upon a time, there was a guard in there, and he saw this frail old lady in there with him. And he was like, you alright? And she's like, oh, I'm really thirsty. Can you get me a glass of water, please? So he gets up to get her a glass of water, and he gets her the water, and he comes back with the water, and he's like, now just hang on a second, you are not supposed to be in here, are you? And so he returns, and she's gone. And he's like, whoa. So she is now affectionately known as the Pantry Ghost. It was thought that she was poisoned in this room for some reason or another, and so she returns to ask for a glass of water. The still room is connected to the dungeon, and in the dungeon it is freezing cold and pitch black. Sounds miserable. Obviously it's a dungeon it's going to. There are 2 cells. One contains a murder pit, where injured prisoners would be chucked into this pit to die, basically. And apparently you can access the pit from the gardens. So basically what they used to do is just like leave the door open and let the dogs eat the bodies. Apparently you can still see the human remains if you visited there today. Part of me thinks, would they leave human remains there? I don't know, surely not, but there you go. Adds to the effect, I guess, doesn't it? The experience. If you're paying to go there, you want to be disgusted, don't you? Even the garden was full of evils. You know, even though it's beautiful and stunning and gorgeous, it is full of bones and death and destruction. So there were apparently hanging trees there, which were used to, you guessed it, hang people. So they wouldn't take them down after they were dead. They would just let their bodies hang there and rot and fall off, and then the bones would be left hanging there. So you just see skeletons hanging in the trees, I suppose. Do you know what sound came into my head? Wooden wind chimes. Right. And there are apparently loads of bones of Scotsmen at the bottom of the lake. And also it is said that if you were to put your hand in the lake, you'd get pulled in and drowned by ghosts, which I highly doubt, but who's willing to try it at the end of the day? So yeah, bones everywhere pretty much. And that is the story of Chillingham Castle. I kind of feel like staying there, but at the same time, if I get killed, I'll just end up haunting Chillingham Castle as well. I don't think I'm ready for that. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe if you like what I have to talk about, and I will see you again next week. Goodbye.